My brothers and sisters, lean in close. I want to teach you something today that will not just inspire you, but protect you. Everything sacred doesn't need to be shared. Let me say it again, because somebody needs to receive this in your spirit. Everything sacred does not need to be shared. You are losing power not because you lack purpose, but because you keep exposing what should be covered. There are some things that God is doing in your life that are so holy, so transformative, so strategic, that talking about them too soon is not just unnecessary, it's dangerous. We live in a world addicted to sharing. People tell what they eat, where they go, who they're with, and what they're planning, before the ink has even dried on the assignment. We've replaced wisdom with attention. But let me tell you something that social media won't. Some of your biggest breakthroughs will come through what you protect, not what you post. When God begins to shift things in your life, when He starts moving in ways that stretch you, prune you, develop you, elevate you, it is not for public consumption. He doesn't anoint you for applause, He anoints you for assignment. And if you're not careful, you will hand your divine strategy to someone who doesn't understand the weight of your destiny. They don't have the spiritual maturity to carry the details of what God is doing in you, and worse. They may try to dilute it, distort it, or destroy it. When something is sacred, it is set apart. It's not meant for the common crowd. It's not for every ear, every friend group, every follower. Sacred means holy. Sacred means protected. Sacred means this is between me and God right now. Sacred means I don't have to explain it yet. Because when something is still being shaped, it's vulnerable, and you can lose what God is forming just by talking about it too loosely. Think about a seed in the soil. Nobody sees what's happening under the ground. You don't walk up to a farmer and say, "What's taking so long?" Because you can't see the roots developing. You don't dig it up just to prove it's growing. If you expose the seed before it's ready, you kill its chance to produce fruit. And so many people are spiritually digging up their own potential, trying to validate what God is doing to people who were never meant to understand it in the first place. You are planting destiny in front of doubters. You're sowing sacred seeds on soil that hasn't been prepared to receive it. And then you wonder why the vision withers. You wonder why the dream dries up. It wasn't that the plan wasn't from God, it's that you exposed it before it had time to root. You need to learn how to carry what God is doing without constantly trying to explain it. If God gave you the vision, He will give you the timing. And when the time is right, you won't have to tell them what He was doing. You'll be the evidence, you'll be the answer, you'll be the manifestation of a private promise made public. The Bible is full of examples of people who protected what was sacred. Joseph made the mistake of announcing his dream too early. He told his brothers, "I saw you all bowing down to me," and instead of celebrating him, they threw him into a pit. The dream wasn't the problem, the timing was. He shared something sacred with people who saw it as a threat instead of a testimony. Some of you are telling your dreams to people who are threatened by your favor, and the truth is, you keep expecting celebration from people who only know how to compete. Everything sacred doesn't need to be shared. Even Jesus, who was fully God and fully man, would heal people and then say, "Don't tell anyone." Why? Because there was a purpose unfolding that needed to happen in a specific order. There was a time for teaching, a time for miracles, a time for suffering, and a time for resurrection. He understood timing. He understood sacredness. He understood the weight of destiny. And if the Son of God knew when to be silent, so must you. This is your season to learn how to treasure the holy, to protect your process, to let the anointing do its work in silence, because what God is doing in you right now is not for likes. It's not for public approval. It's not for validation. It's for impact, and you can't have impact without integrity, and you can't have integrity without discipline, and you can't have discipline if you keep giving away what God told you to hold. So I want to challenge you today. not to shrink, but to shield, not to hide in fear, but to cover in wisdom. Not everything needs to be announced. Not everything needs to be shared. Some things are meant to be lived, not leaked. Because when God gets done with you, your life will speak louder than your lips ever could. There is a season in your life when every shout drowns out the whisper of purpose. You have to learn that silence in the season of process is not emptiness, it's preparation. When you resist announcing every step of your journey, you allow momentum to build beneath the surface, unseen yet unstoppable. You cannot rush the refining fire by advertising the heat. You must endure it in the quiet if you want results that cannot be questioned. Too many of you treat your spiritual growth like a public performance, running from one stage to the next hungry for applause. But when you're always talking, you're not really listening. God speaks in still, small voices. He reveals his instructions in those moments when you stop explaining yourself and start examining your heart. In that pause, he offers clarity you can't tweet about or Instagram. You have to sit in it. You have to soak in it. You have to surrender to it. Think of a caterpillar cocooned inside its chrysalis. You see no movement, no progress, no promise. But inside, the transformation is radical. The caterpillar dissolves, and life is reassembled into wings. If it cried out, "Look at me, I'm changing," it would interrupt the very process that gives it flight. You are in that cocoon. The world doesn't need to witness your breakdown. It needs to celebrate your breakthrough. And that can only happen if you allow the transformation to remain confidential until it's complete. Silence is not a sign of weakness. It is an essential strategy. When you withhold commentary on your progress, you protect the integrity of your journey. Every time you announce your climb, you invite criticism, comparison, and discouragement. Every unsolicited opinion is a rock that chips away at the mountain you're scaling. You have to learn to listen to the right voices. God's voice above the clamor, the wisdom of your mentors, the counsel of your inner circle, while ignoring the cacophony of distraction. In those quiet moments, you're gathering strength, absorbing insight, fortifying your faith. You're learning the art of perseverance without the pat on the back after every step. You're discovering that approval from people is fleeting, but approval from the Creator is eternal. If your confidence depends on likes, shares, and comments, you will never stand firm. But when your assurance comes from the silent conviction in your spirit, no storm can shake you. Consider the stillness before sunrise. At midnight the world is hushed. No birds are singing, no wind is rustling the leaves. Yet that is when the earth turns, when the horizon shifts, when the promise of dawn stirs beneath a dark sky. If the sun screamed its arrival before it rose, its beauty would be lost in noise, but it waits, patiently, powerfully, until the right moment. Your breakthrough is no different. When you master silence, you also master timing. You learn to discern when to act and when to wait. There is power in paused words, in restrained ambition, in quietly tending to the seeds you've planted. You water them with prayer, feed them with discipline, guard them with faith, and then you wait. The unseen labor of preparation yields fruit that doesn't just satisfy the moment. It sustains you for a lifetime. Don't be deceived by the illusion that success is instantaneous. The oak tree didn't stretch toward the sky overnight. It grew roots under the earth that you never saw. You didn't see it struggle against rocks, its fight for nourishment, its silent arms reaching down for stability. But that hidden struggle is what gives it strength to stand through hurricanes. Your hidden process is building resilience, character, and spiritual muscle that will carry you through seasons no one else can bear. The devil wants to make you believe that if you're not vocal, you're invisible. He'll tempt you to brag about every sign of progress so you can be validated by the crowd. But validation by the crowd is like sand. It shifts, it slides, it leaves you empty. Validation from the Father is bedrock, and he often uses the quiet of solitude to whisper, "You're on track. Keep going." You have to cultivate an ear for that whisper, and that requires stillness. When you embrace silence, you also embrace submission. You submit your timeline to God's timing, your plans to his purpose, your ambitions to his anointing. You're not checking off boxes on your to-do list. You're walking step by step in divine sequence. And when the moment arrives, when he finally says, "Now," you will move with authority, clarity, and power, unfettered by doubt, undistracted by commentary. So today, I challenge you, resist the urge to narrate every moment of your life. Let your process be private. Let your growth be guarded. Let your breakthroughs be broadcast by results, not by reviews. Trust the silence. Trust the season of process. Trust that what's being formed in you will emerge fully alive when the time is right. And in that sacred quiet, discover the depth of your strength, the clarity of your calling, and the majesty of God's perfect plan. Not everyone deserves access to your inner circle. That is not arrogance. It is wisdom. It is not pride. It is protection. You must learn that your spirit is sacred, your mind is valuable, your purpose is priceless, and your journey is not for public traffic. Everyone walking with you is not walking for you. Some people are only close enough to distract, derail, or dissect what God is building in you. You must discern the difference between company and covenant, between associates and assignments, between presence and partnership. Too many people are walking through life with spiritual doors wide open, allowing anyone with a smile and a compliment to step into places of intimacy, trust, and influence. But what you fail to realize is this: the wrong person in your inner circle can cost you more than your peace. They can cost you your future. When you allow access without discernment, you end up with betrayal, manipulation, or spiritual delay. Ask Samson. He gave Delilah access to his vulnerability, and it cost him his strength, not because she was strong, but because he was unguarded. Discernment is not paranoia. It's not being cold or closed off. It is knowing that your destiny is too precious to be mishandled by people who don't have the capacity to carry it. You have to stop calling everyone your friend just because they smile at your success or agree with your struggle. Agreement is not the same as assignment. Some people are attracted to your light only because it warms their cold spaces, but they have no intention of growing with you. They're not part of your next. They're only part of your now. Jesus himself had the wisdom to manage relationships with clarity. He ministered to the multitudes, but he confided in the few. He had 12 disciples, but only 3 went with him to the Mount of Transfiguration. And even among those 3, he still often chose solitude when it was time to pray. He was not afraid to walk away to talk with the Father. He understood that access must be aligned with assignment. He loved everyone, but he didn't trust everyone with everything. That's a model you must learn to follow. There are people in your life who are only supposed to walk with you for a season, but because you confused comfort with covenant, you've kept them around too long. You've tolerated voices in your ear that should have never been in your spirit, and every time you try to move forward, their insecurity pulls you back. Every time you speak vision, their silence speaks volumes. Some of the warfare you're experiencing is not from the enemy outside. It's from the influence inside that you refuse to confront. Let me teach you something. The closer someone gets to your heart, the greater the power they have to wound you. That's why not everyone gets a key to your emotions, your fears, your dreams. You don't give the combination to your safe to strangers. Why would you hand over your calling to someone who hasn't been tested, proven, or assigned to walk with you? Some of you are emotionally exhausted, not because you're weak, but because you're leaking, constantly pouring into people who never came to pour back. Every relationship in your life should be evaluated. Some people are confidants. They are loyal, they are honest, they celebrate your wins, and they cry with you in losses. those are rare. Then you have constituents. They are with you, but only because you're headed in the same direction. The moment your paths diverge, so does their loyalty. Then there are comrades. They're not for you. They're just against what you're against. They're allies, not partners. Don't mistake that for love. When you give confidant-level access to constituent-level people, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Not because they're bad, but because they're misassigned. You're handing blueprints for a mansion to someone who only knows how to build tents. They cannot help you steward your destiny, because they do not carry the language or loyalty to handle it. And every time you explain yourself to someone who lacks spiritual capacity, you reduce your vision to match their insecurity. There will come a time when you must choose destiny over history. Just because they were with you in the past does not mean they are qualified for your future. Familiarity is not the same as faithfulness. Some of the most dangerous people in your life are not your enemies. They are your distractions dressed as companions. You can't heal in a hospital where the doctor is jealous of your recovery. You can't grow in a garden where the gardener refuses to water your potential. So it's time to redefine the boundaries. It's time to guard your heart, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. It's time to pray before you permit. It's time to pause before you pour. It's time to recognize that elevation requires separation. You cannot rise while carrying the weight of people who are only loyal to your struggle, not your success. Stop granting access to your inner circle out of obligation. This is your season to be intentional, to walk with those who stir your faith, stretch your vision, and protect your peace. Your inner circle should not drain you. It should develop you. Because where God is taking you, you can't afford to be casual with access. Destiny demands discernment, and your next level depends on who you allow to walk with you. There is a time in your life when silence is not only golden, it is a weapon, a shield, a strategy. When you learn to move in silence, you preserve your strength, protect your progress, and stay aligned with your purpose. Talking too much about what you're building invites too many opinions, too many distractions, and too many hands trying to shape something that was never given to them in the first place. Some of your greatest mistakes came not from the enemy's attack, but from your own inability to hold your tongue when God was trying to teach you how to move quietly. Progress doesn't always look like noise. It doesn't have to come with announcements, declarations, or constant validation. Sometimes progress is the silent shift in your mindset. Sometimes it's waking up with more clarity. Sometimes it's saying no when you used to say yes. Sometimes it's deleting a number, closing a door, walking away without explaining yourself. You're growing, but not everyone needs to know the details, because the truth is, the more you speak, the more access you give. And not every spirit around you is rooting for your growth. Let me help you understand something. Exposure can be expensive. When you talk too much about what you're working on, you unintentionally invite spiritual interference. There are people who will pray against what God is doing simply because they're not a part of it. Some will pretend to celebrate you while secretly hoping you fail, and others, not out of malice but out of immaturity, will handle your vision with carelessness. Not because they're evil, but because they're not equipped to carry what was assigned to you. That's why you've got to move differently in this season. You've got to learn how to walk with your head up, your mouth closed, and your spirit anchored. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting. You don't have to post every step. You don't have to explain every decision. You don't have to justify every transition. Sometimes God is calling you to be silent, not because He wants you invisible, but because He's preparing you to be undeniable. Think about a tree in the winter. No fruit, no leaves, no outward signs of life. But under the soil, there is movement. The roots are reaching deeper. The foundation is getting stronger. Just because it looks still doesn't mean it's not growing. And when spring comes, what was quiet becomes visible. That's how your purpose is unfolding. Quiet doesn't mean stagnant. Silence doesn't mean stuck. Sometimes silence is a sign that something big is coming. People often misunderstand this concept. They think if you're not talking about it, you're not doing it. But you must remember, the lion doesn't roar while it's stalking. It moves in silence, calculates, positions itself, and then it pounces. Your next move is too important to be loud. The enemy is listening. The doubters are watching, and some people are only interested in your plans so they can copy your patter or contaminate your peace. You're in a sacred space right now, a space where God is pruning, refining, and realigning you. That requires you to be intentional about what you share and with whom. You don't owe anyone a press release on your progress. You don't have to fill every silence with an update. Growth is internal before it is external. Maturity is invisible before it's undeniable. And sometimes the only evidence of your elevation is your absence from drama, noise, and foolish conversations. When you move in silence, you give yourself room to listen, to hear the whisper of the Holy Spirit, to receive fresh instruction, to discern what's next. Noise is the enemy of direction. When your life is too loud, you can't hear the correction. You can't catch the subtle shifts. You miss the divine timing because you're too busy announcing your intentions instead of waiting for his instruction. Let me tell you something. Some of the greatest things God will ever do in your life will start in the dark. In the secret place, in the unseen, in the unheard, in the nobody knows us space, Jesus was in the tomb before he was resurrected, hidden before he was glorified, and the stone was rolled away after the work was done. Not before. Some of you are trying to roll the stone away while you're still transforming. But God says, let me finish working on you in the dark. Let me resurrect what's been dead in silence. When it's time for the world to see, you won't have to force the moment. I'll open the door. So, in this season, practice the discipline of silence. Master the art of still movement. You're not frozen. You're focused. You're not hesitant. You're hearing. You're not hiding. You're honoring the process. You are letting God lead without the interference of applause or opinion. Because when it's time for you to speak, your results will be your voice. Your transformation will be your testimony. Your fruit will be your response. You won't have to say, look at me, I'm doing it. They'll see it. And when they ask, when did it happen? You'll smile and say, while you were watching the noise, I was moving in the silence. There comes a time in your life when you must learn to trust God's process without always needing to explain it. Sometimes God will lead you down a road that doesn't make sense to anyone else. He will instruct you to take steps that others would call foolish, to walk away from what looks secure, to hold on when others say let go, and to build when no one else sees the foundation. And in those moments, your greatest strength will not be found in how loudly you can talk about your faith. It will be revealed in how deeply you can walk it out in silence. Faith is not proven in the shout. It's proven in the steps. Faith is not loud. It is obedient. It is waking up when you don't see progress and saying, Lord, I trust you anyway. It is continuing to sow seeds when the ground looks dry. It is showing up when no one claps for you. It is working on the dream when no one sees it. When you don't broadcast what God is doing in you, you allow him to do something through you that no man can take credit for. You shift the glory from yourself to God, and in that, you experience true divine alignment. Too often, we are tempted to explain our process so that people won't misunderstand us. We want others to know, I'm not lazy, I'm just waiting on God, or I'm not confused, I'm walking by faith. But in your efforts to explain yourself, you slow yourself. Because every explanation takes energy, and that energy should be spent executing what God told you, you don't have time to be proving to people what God already confirmed in your spirit. You don't need their amen when you already have his assignment. God is not obligated to explain the path he puts you on. He's only asking that you trust him. Abraham didn't have a map. He had a word. Noah didn't have blueprints from men. He had a whisper from heaven. Mary didn't have a manual. She had a message. You are carrying something that didn't come from man. And what did they all do? They moved in silence. They didn't tweet every day of the journey. They didn't start a podcast explaining their confusion. They walked, they built, they carried, and they trusted that if God gave the instruction, He would also send the provision. There are seasons when God will hide you not to punish you, but to preserve you. He hides you because what He's doing in you cannot survive public scrutiny yet. You are still fragile. The vision is still forming. The oil is still flowing. And if you expose it too early, it will be mishandled, misjudged, or misunderstood. That's why you've got to stop feeling guilty for being quiet. Sometimes silence is not isolation. It's insulation. God is covering you while He cultivates you. You don't have to explain why you're not showing up everywhere like you used to. You're focused. You don't need to defend why you've outgrown certain circles. You're maturing. You don't have to justify your shifting habits, your changing appetite, or your increased prayer life. You're aligning. And while others are watching the surface, God is building something deep in your spirit, something sustainable, something supernatural, something that will outlast trends and outshine critics. If you want to walk in purpose, you have to get comfortable with being misunderstood. People may say you've changed. They may call you distant. They may think you're being secretive. Let them talk. Because while they're watching what you're not saying, God is preparing what you're about to become. And when He brings you into your next season, the transformation will speak so loudly, you won't need to utter a word. Your life will testify. Your results will witness. Your peace will preach. Your fruit will speak. God will make it so undeniable that even those who doubted you will have to say, "Surely the Lord was with them." That's the kind of favor that doesn't require promotion. It requires patience. The kind of breakthrough that isn't born in the spotlight. It's forged in secret places, birthed in obedience, grown in silence. When God finally reveals what He's doing, you'll understand why He told you to keep quiet. You'll see why the silence was necessary. You'll realize that what He was doing wasn't just about the outcome, it was about the becoming. He was shaping you, stripping away your need for validation, stretching your faith, and securing your identity in Him alone. So stop trying to make everyone understand the path God has placed you on. They weren't in the prayer room when He spoke. They didn't feel the calling He placed in your gut. They weren't there when you wept, fasted, and warred in the Spirit. They don't know the weight you carry, and because they don't know, they don't get to vote on how you carry it. This is your journey, and sometimes the best way to protect your calling is to quiet your commentary. Trust the process. Keep walking, keep praying, keep building, keep believing. God sees you, heaven is backing you, and when the time is right, what He's doing in secret will explode in the open, and when that happens, they'll know it was never you. It was God all along. My brothers and sisters, if there is one thing you must carry from this message, let it be this: your silence is not your weakness. It is your wisdom. You don't owe access to everyone. You don't have to explain your every step. You don't need applause to keep moving. Sometimes your greatest growth comes in the quiet. Your deepest breakthroughs happen in the dark. And your most powerful moments are the ones no one ever sees. God is not raising you to be noisy. He's raising you to be strong. Strong enough to keep walking when they don't understand you. Strong enough to build in silence when no one's cheering. Strong enough to know that everybody can't go. And strong enough to shut your mouth when your spirit says, "Protect this." Yes, there are times to speak, but there are also divine times to be silent. Because when you speak too soon, you invite premature opinions, unqualified advice, and unnecessary warfare. But when you trust the process, when you protect your purpose, when you move without always making announcements, then you allow God to reveal, promote, elevate, and vindicate you in His timing. So stop telling what's going on in your life. Not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. Not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them talk, because soon they won't have to hear it from you. They'll see it through you. The fruit will speak. The favor will speak. The glory on your life will speak. And when it speaks, it will speak loud. It will speak clear. And it will testify that God was with you every step of the way. So zip your lips, guard your circle, shut the door, stay in the secret place, and let God finish what he started, because you're not just building something, you're becoming someone, and that, my friend, is worth protecting. Can I get an amen?